Today we are going to start our second topic in Form 3 Physics, and this topic it is friction. So as we have completed the topic of vector, and I hope every concept is understood and everything is clear about vectors. Now, in a friction, first by definition, friction is the force that opposes the relative motion or tendency of motion between two surfaces in contact. I hope you have already heard about friction in your Form 1 physics, and what friction does is to oppose the motion. So let's say we have the motion maybe of a block, and let's say maybe this block imerest kwenye horizontal table. So let's say I have my horizontal table here, and then from this horizontal table nimekuwa na block pale. So I have my block ambayo imerest kwenye horizontal table like this way. So it depends on the mass of the block, but always when you try to pull this block, you will find as if there is something pulling it backward. So sometimes unaweza ukafanikiwa kulivuta because here there is the weight of the object acting downward, mg weight ambayo ni mass times gravitational force, and then there is a normal reaction r, or sometimes in some books wameandika kuwa ni n. Kwa hiyo kilichopo nini? Unavyojaribu kuvuta kitu kizito chochote, let's say hata huu mkebe tukiweka hapa, tukiweka hii mathematical set yetu hapa, tukajaribu maybe kupush, there must be a certain force which is applied, and when you apply this force ili uweze kupush hiyo mathematical set yako, you find as if ni kama kuna kitu kinagomesha hivi. So hii ni kwa sababu mass yake pia ndogo, ndio maana it is easier. Lakini nadhani kama ukichukua labda tofali kabisa lile block ambalo na 5 kg ukajaribu kulipull, utaona kabisa kwamba kutoka kuna nguvu kama inazuia lisitembee. That is what we call friction. Friction is the force that opposes motion. Friction ni msuguano. Wakati motion ya hichi kitu kinataka kwenda hivi, friction inasugua kurudisha nyuma. So that is the concept of friction. So we are saying that when a block of wood is placed on a table, it remains at rest unless it is acted upon by an external force which exceeds limiting friction. So kwa mfano kama tukichukua a block tukaweka kwenye table, let's say this is my table now, the block will remain at rest until it will reach a point ambayo huyu block atakuwa pulled na force fulani F. Ili force iweze kumfanya block a move, in order for the block to move, this force must exceed this force. Let's call this friction force as F, capital F, then small f. So for the block to start motion, then F must exceed, or F must be greater than Fs. The force applied, this is the applied force. The force applied must be greater than the limiting friction. So it is called limiting friction because it tends to prevent the motion of the object. When you want to start the motion of any object, the limiting friction is there, preventing the motion of that object. So friction between solids and fluids, that means gases or liquids, or between fluids, is known as viscosity. I know you know a common example which is honey. Honey is very viscous. Ukijaribu kuimimina hivi asali unakuta haimiminiki. That is because of viscosity. So viscosity is friction between either solid fluid or kati ya fluid zenyewe. Tunaposema fluid include gases and liquids. They include gases and liquids. So in earlier times, surface roughness was thought to be the major cause of friction. In earlier times, walikuwa naamini kwamba because all surfaces they are rough, so because they are rough, that means they are the one which cause frictional force between two substances or between two bodies. However, recent studies have shown that it is actually the molecular adhesion that is the major cause of frictional force. So I know you remember, or I hope you remember about the adhesion forces in your Form 1 physics or chemistry. The adhesion forces, they are forces between molecules of different substances, while the cohesion forces, they are forces between molecules of the same substance. So the adhesion forces, let's say between this my exercise book and my table, they're the one which cause frictional force when I am trying to move this book above the table. The adhesion force, the forces of attraction between the particles or molecules of the table with the particles or molecules of this exercise book. So when two objects they are in contact, many particles, that means atoms or molecules, from one of the object are so near to those of the other object. Kwa hiyo particles maybe of this exercise book, they are so near to the particles of the table. So what is the implication of this? What is the effect of this? We are saying that they are so near from those of the other object that molecular and electrostatic forces attract the particles of the two materials together. Kwa hiyo kutakuwa kuna molecular as well as electrostatic forces which tend to attract the molecules of the table with the molecules of the paper together. These tend to bond the two objects together. These attractive forces between different surfaces are known as adhesive bonds. Kwa hiyo ni kwamba kuna force kati ya this teaching table with the particles of the exercise book, and they are the one which cause difficulty in moving this. Kwa hiyo tutaenda kuona kwenye laws of friction and how does it vary with different factors. So tunachokisema ni kwamba any movement between two surfaces must overcome adhesive forces. Kwa sababu tumeshasema kuna adhesive forces kati ya molecules labda za daftari pamoja na molecules za table. Ili tuweze kumove, tumesema lazima tu overcome adhesion forces, ambazo hizo adhesion force ndio zinasaidia katika kumtengeneza huyu nani, frictional force. So friction also occur partially because rough surfaces tend to catch one another as they slide or tend to slide past each other. So in rough surfaces, let's say I have my surface here and this surface is rough. Again, I have another surface here is rough. Hizi ukitaka kuzislide past each other itakuwa ni rahisi sana kukamatana, na zikikamatana tu manake friction ndio inapoanzia hapo. Zikikamatana friction inaanzia hapo. So all solid material have some degree of surface roughness. Even surface that looks smooth can be rough at microscopic level. They have some ridges and grooves. Kwa hiyo sisi kwenye physics tunasema kwamba hakuna solid material ambayo yuko smooth. Hakuna. Yaani hata kama nikakuletea surface kama hii, nikakwambia it is smooth, don't believe in physics. In physics we are believing no surface which is smooth. All solid material, they have some degree of surface roughness. Kwa tukiona smooth kwa macho, tukipima kwa microscope inaweza ikawa pia rough. So surface roughness have a small effect on friction for most materials. Effect yake ni ndogo compare na effect ya adhesion forces. So soft materials will deform when under pressure. This increase the resistance to motion. Kwa mfano unakuta rubber tires, yani matairi ya magari, pale ambapo panakuwa na pressure ndio imekalia chini, unakuta imfanyaje, ime deform, yani haijawa kwenye shape yake ya kawaida. Hivyo ndio tunasema kwamba for example the rubber tire is flatten out at the area of contact with the road. Hiyo ni kutokana na pia friction kati ya soft materials pamoja na hard material. Friction kati ya road pamoja na na tiles za hiyo load. Kwa hiyo tunaishi hapo. Kipindi kijacho tutaangalia laws of friction. In the next session we'll see about the laws of friction.